Now, why should you be tracking future work trends? Why? Why shouldn't someone else be doing it, right? Well, sure, other people are doing it, including me. However, the more that you're aware of this, the better off you are, because you will be able to be better positioned to help your family members, help your community members, your community. Maybe you attend a church or synagogue. You can help out people in that circle of your life. Maybe you're a volunteer. You can help people in your organization you volunteer for. A lot of possibilities. So why should you be tracking? Because the stickiness of these trends, how much that they last, meaning will the Great Resignation and all those other terms that we went over earlier last until 2023 at this time of the year, October of next year, 2025, 2032. The stickiness of these depends on more people leaning into the future rather than running away from it, being scared, running away from it because you don't have enough desire, hunger to learn. Maybe you live in a fear state as opposed to a state of faith. And faith in this case is not defined in a religious context, but it's defined as faith in your own ability to understand these things and be aware and be able to help other people once you put the mask on yourself. Because the mask in this case I speak of it's a great metaphor, and I've loved this metaphor for years, folks. If you're in an airplane and the masks drop and you need to put a mask on to give yourself oxygen, you need to take care of your own mask first before you can take care of others. Same point here. If you're tracking these trends and are leading into them, you'll be able to help other people. And I think that's a very good thing, because it has more of a servant leadership bent to it than a more management or administrative bent. So that is why is a stickiness and also a tipping point. Because when certain trends reach a certain percentage of the population, and I'm not going to get too deep into this, but it's about roughly 18 to 20% of a given population. So I want you to close your eyes and think of 100 people. Maybe it's 100 people at your workplace. Maybe it's 100 people in your church or synagogue. Maybe it's 100 people in your neighborhood. When 18 to 20 of them have adopted something, the tip happens and it becomes much more mainstream. It's called crossing the chasm. Or if you are a historian like me, it's crossing the Rubicon. So do you want to be part of that 18 to 20 and be more out there in front and leading from the front as a true leader? Or do you maybe have maybe you're healthily skeptical, and that's okay. Healthy skepticism is not a bad thing because you're asking good questions. Where I tend to have an issue as a strategist futurist is when people are unhealthily skeptical or when people are downright cynical. That's where I tend to have a problem with it. So that's the first thing about why you should be tracking these trends. Next is trends often manifest into the real deal, and they tend to impact 5, 10, 25, 50 times more people because of that progressive acceptance of something. Case in point, we spoke earlier about RTO versus hybrid versus fully remote, 1-3 splits, 2-3 splits. We spoke about that earlier. The law of progressive acceptance says that more and more people will be willing to accept that as the default modality. It will stick. The tip has already happened. And then 5 to 10 times, 25 times more people will experience it because people were not living in a fear state. They were not living in scarcity. They were not living a zero-sum game. They were like, okay, this future work trend makes sense to me. I'm willing to give it a shot. And now I'm willing to talk with other people. Okay. So that is very, very important to understand. Also, let me give you an example here. Let's go back in time. So all of us are 40 plus, from what I understand. So do you remember, let's test your memory here. Do you remember when the internet was called the information superhighway? Raise your hand. Okay. Remember when politicians were talking about that? Okay, Julie's raising her hand. These information superhighway. Well, what happened to that term, right? Okay, or remember this, raise your hand, when it was called the World Wide Web, or the 3 Ws, right? Julie's raised her hand again, okay? Why did those terms disappear? Okay, I think it's pronounced Gigi, right? So why did those terms disappear? It's because the internet stickiness. We crossed the chasm long ago, and it became not a trend or a fad, because I can promise you, do a web search on this, folks, and bear with me. Do a web search on this, folks, and I kid you not. You might even be able to find it. One of my favorite sites, if you really want to have a laugh on certain things, or you want to put things in context, is called the Internet Wayback Machine. Look for something that said that the internet was a fad. I challenge you to find that. And if you want to discuss it with me, I'm happy to discuss it with you on LinkedIn or with a scheduler, booking time with me, or you can just discuss it among at your workplace or whatever. Have a good laugh about it. The internet is a fad. And back then, again, remember, it was called the information superhighway or the World Wide Web, right? So that is an example that I wanted to use about why you should be tracking future work trends, because at one point, people were tracking the internet. And it's like, is this thing going to last, right? Or here's another example I didn't put on my notes, but how many people, raise your hand, had concerns about buying stuff online? Oh my goodness, I'm going to lose my identity. I'm going to lose my, Dan is raising his hand, right? I'm going to lose my identity, or better yet, I'm going to not get what I ordered, right? Who's going to fulfill my order, right? I can't see the person. I'm not physically there. Well, guess what? That's what I'm talking about here. That's why you should be tracking trends, because at one point, these were trends that were being tracked by someone. Because your influence is the first step in creating lasting impact, which is all about success in your career and also significance. And it also, I truly believe, leads to more and sustainable income, let alone if we take it to a fourth step and talk about building real wealth. Because wealth and income, this is not a financial talk, but wealth and income are not the same thing. So influence, impact, income, you can even throw wealth in there. So that's why you should be tracking these trends.